Rule 13, dangerous riding. Um, this can be summed up in one sentence. Uh, if you're riding in a way that displays a lack of consideration for the safety of the other players, that's probably dangerous riding. Okay, so we'll go through some specifics, but basically, you're in charge of your horse, and what you and your horse do needs to be within the flow of the game and nothing unusual. And that's what we're looking for. Okay, so a ride off. Similar speeds. An off speed ride off is a foul. So you want to be about the same speed before you enter into a bump or a ride off. In the arena, they actually want the umpire to take into consideration the relative size of the horses. So if you're on a huge horse and the other person's on a pony, you probably don't want to go into a strong bump with them because your horse is much, much bigger. So that would be a foul. The angle of the ride-off should be no more than about 45 degrees. The rule doesn't say that. It just says no steep angles, that sort of thing. As an umpire, 45 degrees is a nice cutoff point. So if it's 45 or less, you're probably fine. If it's more, you may have a problem, depending on the speed. If it's really slow, it may not be such a big deal. But it definitely, if you're fast and you're at a 80-degree angle, off angle bump, foul. Your bump should be shoulder to shoulder. Ride off should be shoulder to shoulder. If it's further back, it's hitting behind the saddle. Very dangerous for both players. So shoulder to shoulder on the ride off. The relative fatigue of the two horses. If one horse is exhausted and you come in and give him a super strong bump, might be a foul because you can tell if a horse is exhausted. But that's a tough one, but it's in the rule, so it happened once. No blindsiding. What does this mean? Usually when you're going for a bump or a ride off, or you're going into a play, the other player has glanced over at you and knows you're coming, so they're expecting it. What blindsiding is if they're not expecting it. Let's say they're engaged with another player and they're not even looking at you, and you just come in and ring their bell, so to speak, by bumping them really hard, and they're not expecting it. That could be a foul. It depends on how the play develops and what you actually did. That could be a foul. But anyway, with all that being said, for ride-offs, I think it's safe to say if you come in at a 45-degree angle or less with a similar speed and hit shoulder to shoulder, I think you're fine. That's the standard for outdoor polo. Indoor polo, they added a few more because there's so much bumping and riding off that they want to make sure it's safe. But I think if you stick to those three, you're probably safe. In any case, you cannot run over the rear quarters of a horse. I've seen this done a lot, and I've called it before, and sometimes I don't call it if it's very minor, because arena polo is very messy and there's a lot of contact. But generally speaking, don't do it. It happens when you want to get to a play that's to the right and somebody's in front of you, and you just pull up and ride over the backside of their horse. It's probably going to put you down because your horse's front legs are the most important ones for stability. Okay, don't zigzag in front of another player. Zigzagging is not going in the flow of the play. That is dangerous riding. Riding a player into the right of way of another player, whether it's their own player or your player, it doesn't matter. You can't do that. Dangerous riding. Running the head of your horse into another player. I see this all the time. It's often done by accident, but sometimes it's done on purpose. A player thinks he or she is being fouled, and they are wrong, but they don't know they're wrong. So they just continue on with their appeal, and they run their horse's head right into the player who they think is fouling them. Foul on you. Boarding, riding somebody into the boards is a foul because it's dangerous. Common sense. A sandwich. Two players from one team riding off one player from the other team. In other words, one on each side. Sandwich. That is a foul on the two players. Riding into a full swing, which is also called riding into a shot. Went over this in Dangerous Use of the Mallet. Look at that video. It's got a pretty good explanation. I'm not going to redo it here. Once someone starts their full swing, you can no longer go in for the bump on the offside. You have to switch to your near side and do a hook. It's all the only play you have. If you ride right into the shot, it's foul on you. It's called riding into the shot. And that encompasses what the rule has to say about dangerous riding. Know this, they did a blanket statement and allows that allows umpire discretion for this rule, and the blanket statement is any lack of consideration for safety of others while you're riding. So that means anything you do that's kind of funky and is a little dangerous, the umpire can use his or her discretion and call a foul on you for dangerous riding. If it's bad enough, you might get a yellow card. Otherwise, it would just be a penalty. And that's Rule 13, dangerous riding in the arena.